Today, Mike and I are going to talk about how we got our almost free shed. We really needed a large shed. I'm a very big gardener. I went to school for landscape design and greenhouse management, and so gardening is my big thing. So it's kind of crazy that I'm a cookbook author because really gardening is my passion. We looked at Home Depot and Lowe's, and we looked at a couple other places, I think. I can't remember.
I just looked at Home Depot mostly, took pictures of the ones they had.
And the ones we looked at were going to be $4,500 to $6,500. And there was just no way we were going to pay that much for a shed. But it was really a top priority for us. So we set out to figure out how we could do it on our own, as usual, which is sometimes a good idea and sometimes it's not. But this time it ended up turning out really well, and we're really happy with the way it ended up. So we're going to tell you a few of the things on how we made our shed. It ended up costing, was it $250?
I don't remember.
I think it was $250 for just, we had to buy the shingles, and we had to buy the siding and the trim, and it was $250 for all that. So we got our entire shed for about $250, which saved us $4,000 to $6,000. So we were really happy with that. So we're going to walk you through a couple of things. So the first thing we did was our shed is sitting on a cement pad, and we noticed when they were building the houses around us that they were dumping all of the cement into a great big pit over on the other side of the neighborhood. So one day I stopped the cement guys and asked them if we built our frame, if they would empty the leftovers into our cement pad for us. And they were like, oh, sure, we'd be happy to. He said, I'll come and do it. He said, don't worry about it. We'll just come pour it for you. And we were thinking, what?
Well, he said build a frame and they would come pour it in there when they had a chance.
So when we got estimates, they were talking $750 to $1,000 just for the cement pad on our shed. So we were happy. Well, that was in August, and we got our frame built, and we were all excited, and we were waiting. And then September rolls around, and we're still waiting. Then October rolls around, and we're still waiting. Then November rolls around, and we had finally given up that they were going to do that. And one day, I was in the kitchen, and all of a sudden, I see all these construction workers walking through our yard with shovels, and it looked like rakes, and they're all walking through our yard. And it was really strange because they never walked through our yard. They were really polite. They always stayed off, and they just all came converging on our yard. And I was thinking, what is going on? And I look out, and behind the two houses here, they were getting ready to finish them, and here comes a cement truck pulling up, and Jack was about 2 at the time, so I said, oh, let's go look at the cement truck. So we were getting his shoes on, and literally by the time we got his shoes on, they had the cement poured and were already finishing it. I could not believe it. It was literally 2 to 3 minutes, and they were totally done. They spent about 5 minutes finishing the top of it, and they were finished.
And they had like a half a dozen guys or more out here finishing really quickly.
Yeah.
And we weren't expecting them to finish it at all. We were thinking it was going to be kind of rough and, you know, the way that we normally would do it ourselves.
Yeah, we thought we were going to have to finish it ourselves, and they just came out and they did it all, and it was done in 5-6 minutes. So we were really excited because after 3 or 4 months, we thought we weren't going to get our cement. And so afterwards, I talked to Mike, and we said, well, you know, let's give him at least $100 to go buy the guys lunch. So we made him a couple of panes of brownies, and I took the brownies over.
Gave him a bunch of Pepsi.
And then we gave him $100 and said, here, take the guys out for lunch. And they were just super, super nice. So we got our cement pad for free, basically. I mean, we gave them $100. So we got our cement pad.
Well, part of why they were really nice also may have been that as we were going through the process of collecting things like our sod for the yard and other things that we were getting for free, we kind of got to know the construction workers a little, and I think that they felt like we were kind of nice people too, and they were kind of enthusiastic about helping.
Yeah, they were always really willing to help us. Of course, I always supplied them with a lot of brownies.
But in other projects we've done in the past where we didn't have that, we were still able to do the projects. It just happens that the finish on the foundation was a lot smoother because they liked us.
Yeah, so we were excited about that. Then for the framing, we collected for about, let's see, it took about a year, right? About a year out of the dumpsters when they were building all the houses. Anytime we would find good wood that they just threw in there, we would pull it out, and we had stacks of wood. I mean, all over the side of the house. It was stacked and stacked.
And part of the reason why, so the builders would throw away wood if sometimes there would be things that they thought wasn't good enough to build a house, but we would look at it and we couldn't really tell, or it might be slightly crooked 2x4. But you know, framers, when they actually frame the houses, sometimes they put the slightly crooked ones in the walls anyway. A lot of them were like 20 feet long, and 4 feet of it on the end wasn't okay. And so they couldn't use it to span a long stretch when they were building a house. But for what we were doing, we could just cut it down and use the straight piece. So there was a lot of really good wood. Some wood wasn't really good, and we used that for fires and other kinds of projects. But there was enough really good wood that we were able to do this entire 12 by 10 foot shed.
With all the wood just from the dumpsters, so it was
And we
pretty
had
crazy.
a lot of wood left over after this was done that we've used for other projects too.
Yeah, we've built a lot of shelves. We've had a ton of fire pits with the extra wood.
We built storage things above our garage doors in the garage so we could hang awkward shaped things
Yep.
so that they're not laying all around. We don't need extra shelves for that. So
Yeah.
a lot of things that we use that wood for.
We really got our money's worth out of our free wood. It was kind of a pain moving it around because we first had it in the garage and then we had to move it outside. So that, you know, you don't realize when you start collecting things like that how big your pile's going to get. So we didn't really make a space for it. And so that we did have to do some work, but we really saved, you know, several $100, maybe $1,000 in wood, don't you think? Probably at least.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So we got our wood for free out of the dumpster. And the next problem was we had no idea how to build a shed.
Well,
So we kind of had basic framing, but
I had built some things before, but nothing quite like this. So I went and took a lot of pictures of sheds that were already constructed, and I looked at designs, and I knew it wasn't going to be that hard. So I found a design that had an awkward shaped roof, kind of went up just a little and then sloped down really slowly towards the back, and that was kind of what a lot of the sheds at Home Depot were using. So I looked at a lot of the sheds at places like Home Depot and tried to kind of model what they were doing there. But I had done some framing before, I'm not by any means professional. I'd done some amateur framing before to fix walls and things, like at her brother's house in Kansas and in the past. And I thought, well, I think I can do this. I just need to kind of understand how they did it. So I looked, and their sheds were, they were sturdy, but the kind of wood that they use isn't what we had. It was a lot smaller pieces than what we had, and so I just looked to see kind of a lot of the framing stuff and came out here and measured everything and started building.
watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to do it. That's how we do most of our how-to stuff. When we don't know how to do something, Michael watch YouTube videos. It's a great resource. I mean, we're not handy people, really. And we just keep watching YouTube videos and figuring it
there are
out.
other things you can do too. You can look online just for plans, and if you have some idea what you're doing, the plans might be enough. So I would look at the plans. I would ask the people at Home Depot, hey, I'm thinking about building a shed like the ones you have out here. What would I do about this, or how do I do that? And then of course I'm buying the supplies there. Well, the supplies that we actually buy, I'm buying there, and so they're more than happy to help. So I came out here and started to build the pieces, and it was going pretty well. But then I was thinking on the roof, I just didn't really like that roof design that they had, and I wasn't sure how, because in the back it was going to be really short, and I wasn't sure how to make that work. So we called in a family member, a cousin who's a professional framer. He said, oh, I'll just come out and help you with that. So we came out, and he and I took apart one of the walls that I had built and reconstructed it to be the same. The front wall and the back wall were different size. So he and I took it apart, and we just rebuilt a new one that was the same size as the front one. And boy, with him out here, I had taken I'd taken probably a half a day or more to build 2 walls. And he came out here and helped me completely frame up the rest and put all the roof decking and everything on it all at once. So it was completely framed, and it had a roof. By the way, part of what we got out of the dumpsters was a lot of plywood, and a lot of times it was pieces that were cut in a way that weren't very useful to the builders. But again, for a small building like this, it was plenty.
Yeah, and we were able to use the plywood, like on the doors here. This is all just plywood that I painted, and then this is just pieces of extra wood that we don't, dumpster dive too, that we put out here. We did have to buy the hardware, and then I bought this trim there. I wanted a cute shed, and so I bought this trim at Habitat for Humanity Restore. Somebody had put it in, and it was $3. So I got all this little scallop trim. I was going to cut wood myself, but that was just going to be way too tedious, and I did not have the patience for that. So I was really glad when I found that.
So after we framed it, we had lots of plywood that we had pulled, and some of the plywood was, not whole sheets, but it was vertically whole, but not 4 feet wide. It's usually 4 by 8 feet, so it might be 3 by 8 feet because they'd cut some off. So we just used that on the sides over the framing, and in order to get the basic shape or the basic outer walls. And on the roof, we had used the largest sheets we could get so that we didn't have a lot of extra cracks and things. And after we did that, we went to do siding, and we were unable to get enough siding by scavenging. We scavenged a lot of wood, a lot of totally good wood out of those dumpsters, but siding, not very much. And it was this concrete siding on these houses that is really hard to work with, and we were told it eats up your tools and everything. So we ended up finding the siding at there's a reclamation company here in Loveland, Colorado, and some of it is taken off of other buildings, and some of it is just something that somebody bought and it sat for a long time, nobody ever used.
Or they buy it at auctions, that type of thing.
Yeah, so we ended up buying this siding. I did the math just to make sure, and it was just barely enough. Well, actually, I think we were short by about 3 or 4 pieces. So I went and I looked, and there was something similar to it at Home Depot. So we ended up buying this for less than half of the price of the regular siding. And then I bought the extra stuff at Home Depot. It didn't exactly match, but it was pretty close.
We put it on the back.
We put it on the back because the shed is 2 feet from the fence, and nobody's ever going to see that.
Yeah.
And even so, it still looks pretty close. So we ended up getting the siding for less than half of the price it normally would be. The roofing, we just bought. We found the best price we could for it, and we just bought that.
I did look at several restore type places and reclamation, and shingles are just, nobody has shingles.
And it didn't take very much, so it really wasn't worth looking all over the place for, because it was just a small roof. And also I had learned in the past about roofing. We had a neighbor that needed some help, and I helped him, and we had some people that had done it before, and their roof turned out beautifully, and we did one of our houses in Kansas, so I knew exactly what to do on the roof. But even if you don't, it's really not very hard, as long as you make sure you look and find out. This is the kind of thing YouTube would be good for.
Yeah.
Because there are certain elements you don't want to skip, and if you just guess, you won't get that. And I think I did the same thing with Home Depot. So
yeah.
Anyway, so we got that, and then the doors were difficult. Yeah. I asked my cousin again, and then I ended up building some things that seemed to match sort of what I had seen in the other sheds, and we did have to buy the shed hardware new, like the hinges and stuff like that.
And I did buy my handles. I bought those new. They were 80 cents at Walmart. And then I just had a little piece of tubing on the back that I used as a spacer and just drilled straight into there. So I just had the little free tubing, and then I spent $1.60 on my handles. And
so it's a screw through trowel with some spacers and I think some washers maybe.
Yeah. And then I have a couple of decorations on the outside. We built this one out of leftover wood, and then it's my great-grandfather's hoe and shovel from his ranch that he's had from the 1920s. And then my shovel that I broke just as a memory. I don't know why I need a memory of a broken shovel, but I did.
It was a guaranteed to last for life shovel that we ended up
Yeah.
calling, and the company sent us a new one. So
Yeah, that's the memory I needed, because it was supposed to last for life, and we managed to bust it, which figures. And I've busted 2 of their shovels, just by the way, so their lifetime shovels aren't lifetime. And then the rock we got for free, the flagstone from my cousin also, they were getting rid of it. We did buy the rock for the paths here.
there's a quarry near us, and we just went there and bought it.
Yeah.
Like by the ton. It's something like $15 or $20 a ton.
Yeah.
And we just brought it home in the pickup.
And then the lining rock, my other cousin was getting rid of some of her rock, and she had all this big stone, so we got all that for free. So we hauled that in, the kids and I. Michael managed to have ankle surgery about that time, so the kids and I were hauling all this in. They were real happy about that. So
Getting away from projects.
yeah.
It's a good trick.
So we'll show you a couple of things on the inside that we did that are cheap, but they're easy ways to help organize your shed. So our shed is 10
It's 12 by 10.
by 12, 12 by 10. And all the shelves that you see along here, this is all reclaimed wood from the dumpsters. We rescued all this wood from the dumpster. We put notches in the back so the shelves would go clear back so the stuff wouldn't fall off, which was kind of tedious, but
Oh, what she means by that is in between the framing on the back, we notched this wood so that it would slide in between the framing. So it doesn't just go up against the framed wall in the back.
yeah. And so that did take a lot more work, but it was really worth it in the end, because some of my smaller things, like my seed starting things and that kind of thing, they would just fall back, and I didn't want everything falling back behind. So we did that little feature. So I was going to show you some of the ways that we organize the shed to get the most.
Well, I was going to say, for the reclaimed wood, these shelves were a perfect opportunity to use a lot of the little pieces that were hard to use for other things, because there are a lot of pieces that weren't quite straight, or this one has a little notch in the side of it. Those things are totally harmless to shelves. So we were able to use a lot of even the small pieces, and for the fire pits, we only burned the things that really we couldn't use for anything.
Yeah.
In fact, even some things like over here, we have a piece of wood that we just screwed on the wall just to keep shovels and things in place.
Yeah, so we took the scraps and we screwed it up here, and then we just set our shovels behind, and then I put my stakes and my hose and my rebar, all those kinds of things I can hang back there. Up here for my rake, I just used an old coat hook, and you can see how the rake just fits perfectly. It just sits right up there. I just had that old coat hook. Then for everything else that hangs, I just use nails. And our farm shovels, we love our farm shovels for compost and wood chips. They're great. Shoveling snow, it's great.
They're much better than snow shovels for shoveling snow. The metal one especially.
Yeah, it gets it a lot better. Then over here I used my, I found these at a garage sale, and they're old shoe organizers. And I did a video on this, so you can check that out, but I think I paid a quarter or 50 cents for those. Then over here for all my twines and my Velcro and my stakes, I just put up little nails, and then I just hang them up so I can see them, and I just have to reach in and grab, and I'm not trying to fumble through all my chemicals and everything and that type of thing. Let's see, what else? Then I keep, down here I have my fertilizers and my seeds and all that. This is kind of funny on these fertilizers. I got about 7 years worth of fertilizer for $5 at the Restore. They had all these bins of opened fertilizer and iron and a little bit of grass seed in there and compost. And I bought it all. And this is about a quarter of what's left. But they had them all in these bins, so I've just kept them here. And it's actually worked out really well. So I think I'm going to keep my fertilizers in here from now on, because it's a lot better than keeping the bag open on the floor and it spills and then you got mess everywhere. Let's see. I do have, you'll notice I have a lot of pots. And that is because one of these days I'm hoping we'll get a greenhouse up. But I'm a huge gardener, and even without the greenhouse, I use these for transplanting. If my plants aren't quite big enough yet to put in the ground, I'll move them from the little pots into the bigger ones. So that's why I have a large collection of those. Let's see, what else?
Well, we have a little thing of wood here.
Oh yeah,
This is some of the small pieces we have, and some of it, like those stakes, we might be able to use for things. We just keep it in here so it stays dry, and if we really need something to help start the fire, we have it. But sometimes we find other uses for it in the meantime.
Yeah. Then another thing over here, we also put the pieces of wood up against the framing because we put our fence panels, and extra siding in here, and it just slides straight down. And we have these vinyl fences, which I absolutely hate because they're really hot, but...
And they don't let the air blow through at all.
And they're kind of a pain. And if you break a panel, it's hard to replace it. So we kept extra panels in case the kids throw a baseball or something through it. And so we store those there. Then all my drip irrigation, I put on a great big hook that we had. Hook. Yeah, it's a bicycle hook that we had from our other house. And our weed eater, we store on the ceiling with bicycle hooks, and then we just put the extra weed eater string right next to it. I am a big believer, always put like things together and where you'll use them. Put your weed eater string with the weed eater. Put all your chemicals together. Put all your clippers together. Then you can find and you know where everything is, and you can find it when you need to. And of course, you need to put all your gnomes together because that's the most important thing, right, dear?
Yes.
I am a collector of all things gnomes, and I found this cute little gnome family somebody did for $5 at a garage sale, and there's 4 big pieces to them. But I just thought they were the cutest little things, so I couldn't resist. So we stand them up in our fence during the summer. It's fall now, and I'm getting everything taken down. But yeah, so that's pretty much on the inside. Did we miss anything? I don't think so.
Nothing's coming to mind.
Yeah, so you can tell I'm a pretty big gardener. It's crazy that I'm a cookbook author, but gardening is my thing, so the shed's really important.
I did think of one thing. When we built the shed, I think Tara wasn't sure why I wanted to do it this way, but I wanted to put the door on the wide side, so it's 12 feet on the front and 10 feet deep. And the reason I wanted to do that is because too many times in the past, having to climb over all kinds of things to get to something in the back of the shed was a kind of a problem. And this way, the door is really wide, so if it happens that there's a lot of stuff in here, there's plenty of area to be able to come in and walk past that without having to trip over it.
And normally the lawnmower sits here where I'm standing. We took it out for this video so we could show you easier. But normally the lawnmower sits here, so we can easily walk over here and around. And then we just stand up our garden wagon here.
But a lot of the sheds that we saw were deeper, and you would come in kind of from what would be the side of our shed. And I just think this would be an easier way to be able to
this works
manage.
a lot better, I think. I'm glad we did it this way. So I'm glad he didn't listen to me because it ended up working out really good. We almost got divorced over it, but we're still married. So okay, so now we're going to show you my compost pile. So this is the side where I have my compost pile on our shed. And normally I build a compost pile, but this time we took, and when we put the fence up, it came in these, what do you call it, a crate, I guess? I don't know, these wooden
things
boxes.
were wrapped around it.
Yeah, these were wrapped around all the pieces of the fence.
They're actually separate little pieces. They're just rectangles.
And
they went all around the plastic from the fence material.
Yeah, so it held all our fence material, and none of the neighbors wanted it. So what I did was I took these and I just stacked them up for my compost pile. And it's actually worked out really good because I can just unstack them, take my compost out, use it, and then just restack them back up. This is probably one of the easiest compost piles I've ever had, and I really, really love it. You can see I unstacked this one a few weeks ago and got everything out, and I've started adding, and I'm going to start moving a couple of these as it gets higher. So this was another one of our dumpster dive saving money tricks, was to reuse our fence boxes.
Well, everybody was just throwing these away, and we said, hey, can we take those and use them for this?
Yeah. And there was a couple that were broken. Of course, we used those for fire pits, but we really liked it. And then on this side of the shed, we also have my clothesline. And I really wanted these metal poles because the metal just holds up so much better than the wood does. The wood always seems to sag. No matter how hard you try, you know, you can tip them out a little bit, but they still pull in. So we found these on Craigslist, and someone was getting rid of them for $10. And so we ran to another town about 10 miles away and picked them up, and my ever faithful husband dug the holes and the cement. And
A little tip about that: if you're looking for the metal poles, and you go somewhere and they say, "Oh, hey, if you take them out, that'll be fine," maybe.
don't do it.
We've done that a couple of times, and one of the times we just went there and started to dig, and we said, "Yeah, this isn't going to work," because they put in 1950 like 8 bags of concrete, and with no rocks, so it was super strong, and we were able to get it. One of the times we were able to get it home, and we're trying to smash it with the sledgehammer. Just wasn't worth it. These, they were already out of the ground, and they had already taken the stuff off the bottom. So
Yeah,
it was
so
easy.
if someone tells you, oh, you can have them if you take them out of the ground, it's a trick. Don't do it.
Well, it depends on how they did it. You can always say, well, let me bring my shovel over and dig a little and see what it looks like. But if it looks like there's a ton of concrete under there, don't even try.
And then I got these rocks that I put under my clothesline, because at the time it was really muddy here and we didn't have our paths yet or anything. So I put these stepping stones down, and I got those free from my cousin also. I have a lot of cousins that are getting rid of stuff. And then I got this old chair at a yard sale for $5, and I love these old metal chairs from the 50s. I've got 5 or 6 of them. They're my favorite. I haven't repainted this one yet, but I'm probably going to paint it a bright red or something. And then over here, we have our makeshift firewood stand out of the same fence boxes. And so we stood 2 of those up, and we cut up our wood and we put it in there. So that's,
that way when we stack it, the wood doesn't fall all over the place.
Yeah, so that's what's on this side of the shed. We'll take you over to the other side and show you what I did over there. So on this side of the shed, this is my potting bench area, and I used to have a table over here. And just a couple weeks ago, a lady said that she was getting rid of this potting bench that was made out of pallets, and of course I had to cabbage onto it. I'm gonna paint it, but for now, I just have too many other things to do, but I'm gonna get to that. But so I put some trellises on here that I've been growing morning glories on, because for me, if there's an open piece of ground, I believe there should be a flower in it. So, so I pretty much plant flowers wherever I can. And I'm always driving my poor husband and children crazy because they want to put a rock somewhere. I'm like, no, we got to put a flower there. So I usually have plants growing up here, but okay, come back. We're almost done. We got like 3 seconds. Okay, so we just had a wasp attack moment. Apparently they're on their fort over here. So anyway, this is
So
my
Dad's
whole...
gonna go on the hunt.
Yeah, so Dad's going on the hunt. So this is my potting area. I've got my big buckets of soil. Every time I get plants in containers that I don't need in the garden, I will pour them in these big buckets, and then I can just use those for starting my seeds and that kind of thing. So that's what we've got on this side of the shed.
One thing we didn't mention, because of the wasps, I was really particular about putting a lot, like underneath that trim and in other places where there were a lot of little cracks, and I made sure to get a lot of filler. Was it silicone or?
It was that foam filler stuff, and then
Well,
caulking
I used
both.
foam for big spaces, and then kind of a ceiling outdoor caulk for the rest to prevent them from building. And so far they have not built on this shed at all in 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's how we made our 12 by 10 shed for a lot less, almost for free. And really, in the end, this shed is probably twice as strong as the sheds that you buy. And for the concrete, they gave us probably twice as much as we would have had to pay $1,000 for. So this is a pretty seriously strong shed, and to get it for $250.
Yeah. This is one of our good deals. It was pretty, I will admit, it was pretty stressful trying to figure it out and all that, but now that it's done and it's up, oh man, I really love it, and it's nice to be able to just find everything and put everything up. And so
If we could do it again, I would build another one somewhere else in the yard and finish it like an office.
Yeah.
and have an outside office.
Yeah, so the next project is going to be the greenhouse, but we got to get some kids grown up, so the fort's gone first, and maybe we'll use the wood from the fort for that. So that's how we build our garden shed for almost free. Now it's by your leg. As you can tell, Ellie is afraid of wasps, but
Had her and we lost her.
Mom is.
I used to be afraid of wasps too,
Yes.
but I've decided to kill them instead.
Yes, get revenge.
Are you coming back? We need to shoot the rest of this.
But I have my handy dandy wasp spray right here in my garden shed, and I can even find where it is. We have 2 containers on top of the other 12 in the garage. Yay!
We bought the 12 in the garage last year for $1 each. We're like, we'll use these eventually.
So we have plenty of wasp spray now forever. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe, like, share, and comment below.